Here we are from the round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's a satiric look at the media when I put Sidney Lumet's Network against Spike Lee's Bamboozled. And this one was a wild one to get through because both of these movies pack a hell of a punch and they have a lot of shit to say. So let's just dive right on in to the nitty and the picky. First up, we have Sidney Lumet's Network, written by the great Patty Chayefsky, who it was one of the greatest writers of all time, and this is by far his greatest script, bar none, because every single character in this movie is fully developed, and every single character, no matter how insignificant their role is in the film, has at least one great monologue. So the film Network is about talking about network news, broadcast shit. And back then, it was the big three. You had NBC, CBS, and ABC. And then, of course, there's the fictional station that Network has is called UBS. And one of their star newscasters, Howard Beale, played by the great Peter Finch, who was the first actor to win an Oscar posthumously for this movie. And they're getting rid of him because he's got shitty ratings. And he's decided, this is all he has, so he's just going to kill himself. And he announces this over the air, and that basically starts a domino effect of a firestorm, because this man is essentially having a mental breakdown. And of course, his good friend William, played by William Holden, he's trying to keep him together the best that he can, but shit goes off the rails too fucking fast for him to be able to keep up with it, because when he gets on there and starts yelling bullshit, because they take him off the air, then they put him back on, because he says he's all right, but dude's also hearing voices, and but he's also slowly becoming a voice of a generation, because it's usually the most unhinged motherfuckers that speak the most profound truth. And that's definitely true of Howard Beale in this film, because for all of his insanity, he does make some valid points that were just as relevant back then, and probably even more relevant now in the age we live in, because compared to the internet, television ain't shit as far as corrupting the fucking mindset of society and shit like that. And of course, Faye Dunaway, in probably her greatest performance, but she even won the Academy Award for this too. She plays like kind of a programmer, television person, and so has nothing to do with the news division, but sees a hit, and she jumps right on it, and basically that whole, what Network is most famous for is that I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That whole sequence is brilliant. That whole speech that Howard Beale does, but the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest moment in that sequence is that cutaway to Faye Dunaway. As soon as that motherfucker goes, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, they cut away to a reaction shot of her face, which is the biggest orgasm you ever see her have in this whole film. Because even when her and William Holden start their whole relationship and everything, that shit is just like, she don't even come as hard with that. But she's like, we've got a hit, damn it. And of course, the great Robert Duvall, who we recently lost, he plays Frank Hackett, who's kind of the fucking money guy, like of the corporation CAA that's taken over UBS and all this shit. And of course, once he sees a hit, he's like, got a big titted hit. It just like, what it is a very acidic look at how the media, the fucking trajectory the media was going down. Because by the mid 70s, television was taking over. It was an invention that was born in like the late 40s and blossomed in the 50s, and then just slowly took over, because like back then, television was the worst thing that was going to corrupt your mind. Now, I mean, shit, with the internet now, like I said, television ain't shit. But the best monologue in this film is Ned Beatty, who's like the head of CAA, and he, after Howard Beale exposes their fucking deal with the Saudis and shit, he decided, well, let me set this motherfucker straight. Let me see if I can sell you on something. And that whole fucking, there is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM, DuPont, ITC, all that fucking shit. That is fucking brilliant, because that's real shit. It's all about corporations, and corporations run the media and all this shit. And then, but now that he's all dark and depressing and there's no fucking hope in the world, the individual is dying, it's all about the corporations. the ratings plummet, and they're like, well, we can't get rid of him because, fucking Jensen, played by Ned Beatty, he wants him, so they decide to fucking kill him, which is one of the greatest endings of all time for a film. They kill this motherfucker for bad ratings and shit, and that whole like boardroom meeting is like so sinister when they decide to kill this motherfucker. And they, there's a whole other side plot. They have the Faye Dunaway's character has a show with these revolutionaries and shit. Lorraine Hobbs, who orchestrates all the shit, she's fucking brilliant in that shit too. Like I said, there's nobody in this film that has a flaw. Like everything in this movie is fucking brilliant. There's nothing out of place. They get those revolutionaries to kill Howard Beale, and then it all fucking just works out for him, And so that right there is, Network is one of those few movies that you could call a perfect movie. And then we move forward to Spike Lee's Bamboozled, which, yet again, another very satirical look at the media. And here, made it the turn of the century, the year 2000. We see Damon Wayans as a TV guy that's trying to cut, he's having a lot of bad luck coming up with a hit show, and he's trying to pitch a hit to the fucking network executive, played by Michael Rappaport, who is absolutely brilliant in this film, because Michael Rappaport was really good at playing the white dude that thought he was black, basically, and the kind of dude that he's not afraid to drop the N-bomb in front of black people because he's married to a black woman. He feels that he's earned the right to say that word and shit. He even says as much when in his whole exchange with Damon Wayans. And so Damon Wayans decides to pitch him this new millennium minstrel show, where they get, which the minstrel shows like back in like the 40s and shit, were like white people in blackface trying to, make black people look ignorant and shit. So his idea is that we're just going to put black people in even blacker faces. And he gets like a tap dancing duo that he finds on the street to be Mantan, the new millennium minstrel show. And by some reason, the show's a fucking hit. It's a minstrel variety show, very offensive and stuff, but of course not everybody likes that shit. Jada Pinkett plays Damon Wayans' assistant, and she immediately doesn't like what's going down. And of course her brother, played by Mos Def, plays a revolutionary, and he definitely doesn't like it. And his group ends up capturing the main star of the show and ends up killing him, a live execution. Now, the thing about Bamboozled, there is a lot of shit that is very relevant too, because that kind of shit was fairly new when Bamboozled came out, much in the same way when Network came out. Shit hadn't gone that fucking crazy, but it was about to. It was kind of on the cusp. Motherfuckers could see the insanity that was brewing in America, and especially in the media. And the point that Spike Lee's trying to make here is how, like, we really haven't evolved much as a society. More or less, racism still thrives, and, motherfuckers still don't have any respect for the black man. And it's all considered just a one big spectacle and shit. And now, the thing about Spike Lee's kind of like the Black Oliver Stone. He doesn't really, he has a hard time keeping focus and not being too preachy, and sometimes the message gets in the way of having a great movie. Because one, like Damon Wayans, his, like, I don't know what fucking accent he was trying to do, but his voice is kind of fucking annoying in the film. But he does kind of give a brilliant performance as the fucking pretentious, like, art guy that's just trying to make a hit in television and stuff. And like Jada Pinkett is really great in the film too, as the one kind of voice of reason in the film. And of course, Mos Def is badass as her revolutionary brother. And Michael Rappaport too might be the best performance in the film, because he really hams it up in this shit. But I feel like movie runs a little too long, and it just doesn't, it lacks a certain amount of heart. Because the thing about it is, I know what Spike Lee's trying to say, but I don't really think he says it as strongly as how Patty Chayefsky said it with Network and stuff. Because like Spike Lee might be a better director than Sidney Lumet, but he sure as hell is not a better writer than Patty Chayefsky. And he definitely fucking like that can't hold a flickering birthday candle to the brilliance that is Network, because I think Bamboozled works better as a concept because it's not as believable as Network, because the whole Howard Beale show shit, you can actually see that shit happening. I don't really think that a fucking minstrel show would be a hit at the turn of the century, even in, in America that was still like, mildly racist and very hesitant about being politically correct, but you know, some motherfuckers do have taste, you know, and there's shit that distasteful and shit. Like I said, had a good message that he was trying to say, but didn't really say it as well as Patty Chayefsky. So this round clearly has to go to Network because one, it's a perfect movie. One of the greatest movies of all fucking time. Bar none. Nobody could write a fucking script like Patty Chayefsky. That motherfucker could turn goat piss into gasoline. You know, and the thing about it is too, Network is also an entertaining movie that you still get the message from without having to deal with all the heavy-handed bullshit and stuff. And also, like, the thing about it is, and also the music in Bamboozled is great, but it just still, like I said, runs a little too long, and the acting and the filmmaking is a little disheveled. Also shot like on some kind of digital shit that makes, you know, it also saturates the color, which is probably a stylistic, artistic choice, but doesn't look as good as Network. So, like I said, this round goes to Network. For anybody keeping score, that is 77 to 63. 70s are up by 14 now. They just broke the streak that the 90s were on. 90s were on a pretty good streak, but then again, when you got classics like Network, you can't really fuck with the 70s on that one. So, if I've said anything wrong, anything you disagree with, feel free to eviscerate me in the comments. All this shit's up for debate. You know, this is one asshole's opinion. I'm on a long, self-indulgent academic journey to figure out which decade was better for movies, the 70s or the 90s. Like I said, I may be right. It could be the 70s. I mean, they are up by 14 now. They just broke that 90 streak, so we'll see how that goes. Our next main event will be Lady Sings the Blues versus What's Love Got to Do with It. So that one should be exciting as well. So stay tuned for all this lovely goodness.